And welcome back, everyone, to the Excellent Decisions podcast. This is Robert MacPhee, your host, and my guests and I are here to help you make more excellent decisions based on vision and values and value rather than stress and pressure. And we're in the midst of something called the Wisdom series that we've been doing every day for a couple of weeks because all that stress and pressure that I was talking about has been ramped up. And one of the things that I've been doing to try and support people is to share some of the amazing people that are teachers and mentors and collaborators for me over the past 20 years or so that I have found that their wisdom has really been helpful to me in dealing with the current climate. So today I have Tiffany Peterson with me, and no printed bio for Tiffany because first of all, Tiffany and I are just really dear friends. She's a treasured friend. And she and I first met when I was working with Jack Canfield, and she and I share a real commitment to that kind of fundamental, foundational, common sense personal development work. She's also a brilliant sales trainer. She does amazing transformational work, predominantly with women, I think, but certainly open to men as well. And again, I think one of the things about Tiffany that I admire the most is all this work that she's doing. She also practices what she preaches. I've been around her personally, professionally, and I see that she doesn't get on stage and say that the rest of us should all do one thing while she does something else. She really lives what she encourages other people to live, to have a more satisfying, productive life. So Tiffany, I am so happy you're here. How are you doing?
Well, I love that you're creating this valuable space for people. Of course you are, because that's who you are, and you just gather and create value all the time. But it's so literally good to see your face, and I'm looking forward to our conversation today, and thank you for having me part of this series with you.
As close as we can be to being together in person right now, right?
Right, social distance.
Exactly. So one of the things I've been doing with almost everyone who's joined me and said yes to this, which has been wonderful, is just kind of stepping back and getting perspective. Like what are you seeing out there? We're a couple weeks into this thing now, a few weeks actually into this thing now, and it seems like everyone's having kind of their own unique experience. What are you noticing, and how is all this impacting you and your life and your business?
Yeah, that's a big question. And I think one of the things I've become really aware of is just in myself for everyone is an increased sense of empathy and compassion for the human race. It's often we're really categorized as human beings and labels, right? And we have such distinct labels of, political things and religious things and socioeconomic and education and age and gender and all the things. And I think the reality is we're all in the same storm right now. Now, the difference, though, to just be conscious of, and so when you ask me that, what am I aware of? I'm aware of similarity, and I'm aware of difference and compassion for all. Because even though we are all in the same storm, we are in different boats, right? Like as you mentioned, I do work with men and women. I do happen to coach a lot of women business owners, women that have their own business or indirect sales or real estate agents or things like that. And I'm seeing a lot of women, and again, of course, men too, where now they're homeschooling children. And they were not used to doing that before. They were used to sending kids to school and then working and then picking back up into parenting. And so there's a lot of adapting happening. And so having huge empathy for these moms who feel the pressure to educate and entertain and keep a handle on their business and keep themselves maybe showered and clothed, and making good food and just trying to do all the things. And then there's, some people where that may not be their challenge, where, like myself, I'm single and I live alone and I see my mom pretty regularly and I have a really full social life typically. And right now, due to what we're experiencing, that social life and my business and being out and about, I'm home a lot and doing a lot more Zoom. So I still feel a lot of connection. But there are times where, some of my friends get anything to have a night to themselves or a day to themselves to just reground, where the boat I'm in, it's sometimes there's too much quiet. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? And some people thankfully I have an online business where I do a lot of business online already, and I'm used to working from home, and I have a lot of, opportunity that way. where some people, they're really adapting to working from home, or they've lost a job, or someone they love has lost their job. And so again, I think just an increase of compassion and awareness and releasing the judgment. Judgment keeps us all stuck. And so we're not wrong to have judgments come up, but I think the more we come back to the compassion, that even though we're all in the same storm, based on our mindsets, our upbringing, like you and I were saying before we clicked record, you and I have been really fortunate to have surrounded ourselves with really high vibrational thought leaders for decades. And so we've been heavily shaped with, that doesn't still mean that you and I won't still have moments of, oh my gosh, and fear and anxieties pop up, but we also have a lot of resources of human influence and tools we've learned. And not everyone has that either. So it's just the awareness of, we're in the same storm, but we're all in different boats, and to just have compassion and empathy more for yourself. If you need to nap more right now, or if you're, I mean, some people, they're like, after in their fitness, or really like, I'm writing my book right now. And some people are like, I'm lucky to get pants on today, you know, or I'm eating a sleeve of Thin Mints and binging Tiger King on Netflix, you know. It's just no judgment of however you need to process. I do think that's a wise question, Robert. And one that I'd like to tuck in here is months ago, I did a podcast on my own show talking about one of my potent self-care questions. Because as you mentioned, I do a lot in sales. I would say as equal to sales, I do a lot with self-worth or self-care work. And so kind of a hybrid between life coaching and business coaching. Well, a lot of that self-care question that I have, that I love to ask myself, and I love that I model for my clients, and I just want to share with y'all here. And that question is, what do you need, sweetheart? Is to turn inward and be self-nurturing, asking of yourself, what do you need? What do you need? Even as a grown man or a grown woman, you know, there's this emotional body and part of us that's like, oh my gosh, what is happening? And all of the things. And again, most of this experience, I've felt pretty peaceful. I have a very strong faith base in my life. And I really, for me, that means God. Totally respect however people presence to their higher power and whatever title they may give that. I have felt a lot of peace and a lot of comfort, but I have also had stress and loneliness too. But asking yourself a great self-care question. I think right now, what's really relevant now is day to day, right? Like you and I said that as well before going live, is just taking it day to day, but asking for this day that you're in, what do you need? And just asking of yourself. I love the affectionate term sweetheart in there, to be nourishing and nurturing to yourself. And if you need to say, I need to go for a walk, then you honor that, or for a run, right? That's my one personal commitment I've made through this, who knows how long, but this thing is that I have decided, and I'm here in Salt Lake City, Utah. So like we had snow overnight. Now it's sunny today, but that's spring in Utah where it can be sunny one day and then snowing the next, and you don't know what you're going to get. But no matter what the weather's doing, I committed a few weeks ago that I would get moving outside at least once a day. So whether that's a 15-minute walk, a 45-minute jaunt to the park, and jogging, running, doing a full workout, you know, whatever it might be, but I have to get outside at least 15 to 20 minutes a day and get moving. That for me is one of my go-to self-care questions, but asking yourself, what are you needing more of right now? And for some of you might be saying, I need a workout, or I need to really deep clean that pantry, or I'm going to write that book, or I'm going to this, I'm going to that. It's just tuning in daily to what you need and honoring that, I think, is a great way that we navigate this turbulent time. Yeah.
So first of all, I have to comment on the person who, you know, can't even get their pants on that day, because that's part of the beauty of Zoom, right? Who knows who's wearing pants, right? We're on all these Zoom calls. I mean,
yep.
You know, you and I could be both going cowboy right now, and who would know, right?
Who would know?
Who would know? And we're not revealing either. Like I'm just going to speak for myself. I'm going to leave it up. Anyone watching the video, you know, you just have to.
Yeah. That's why I messaged you earlier today. I'm like, is this audio or video? Because I need to know if we're on video. I gotta get,
at least from the waist up, I got to get my act together, right?
I mean, I got earrings on today, people.
There you go.
Like I don't wear earrings for just anyone, but for Robert MacPhee, I will.
All right, there you go.
You know, but it's true. It's like, because I have had some moments where I'm like, I literally stayed in my pajamas the whole day. And I was like, no, it hasn't happened a lot, but it's happened a few times. It's like just being kind to myself about that, because the high achiever, real productive type, who normally like to go at Mach 80 right now, we are being given a forced slowdown.
Mm-hmm.
And some of you might be like, whoa, it's just to be kind about however you need to navigate it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The other thing you were talking about, and it references one of the things I keep hearing a lot of, is there's all these conversations that we're being invited into, all the scarcity and the lack and the panic and the worry. It seems like there's this constant invitation into those kinds of conversations. But you mentioned one that I really haven't thought of as much, but I think is really relevant, and that's the conversation about judgment, like the judgments that come up amidst everything that's going on. Can you tell me what you mean by that? Like what kinds of judgments you notice coming up for yourself or for other people?
Yeah, can I just get totally real, I guess? Well, I will.
We can always, if you go too far, I can always edit it out later. So
yeah. I'm aware of a judgment I was having. I was judging someone's judgment. Does that make sense? Like I was observing someone else, what I felt was really in judgment, and then I was judging their judgment, because the part of me that wants to be a really protective, little bit of mama bear, a little bit of like, hey, but I was watching someone who I really respect, and author and speaker, thought leader, and he's all about high performance and productivity and all this stuff, which I really respect. But when this really first started heating up, and like we were a week and 2 weeks in, and the messages just kept coming that were like, be productive. This season determines who you are and where you're going, what you're creating. I was getting pissed off, okay? Because not because there isn't value in saying, but I think the value to me, now this is my mindset, so I own it was my judgment, my mindset is, number one, I think people come first. People over productivity, over profit. I'm definitely a humanitarian before I'm anything else. Yes, I'm still a business owner. Yes, I'm still very conscious of and concerned about our economy. And I care about, productivity. And I understand at some level, he just was riding a real thin line between support and judgment. Like it has to be this way. You got to do this system and you got to be this productive right now. And I'm like, no, a lot of people are totally disrupted right now. And even when you have a really positive mindset, you're still adapting. And now, again, might have 3 or 4 kids at home, and you're adjusting to homeschooling, which is a really big deal and is a full-time job, right? Yeah. A lot more respect, I think, has come up for our teachers, for our cashiers, for our truck drivers, for our health frontline workers. I mean, but our school teachers, all these parents are getting a bird's eye view, where I love seeing some of the meme going around where it's like some parents are real close to figuring out that it wasn't the teacher, And so the point being around judgment, and I have let this go, because again, I get it that this in this person's own, maybe their own fear in their own way, but it was really trying to give a prescription that there was this way that you needed to show up right now. And I just think the less that we judge others and ourselves is healthier, right?
Yeah.
Is if right now, truly, like I've had some real productive moments. My pantry cupboard has never looked cuter. My snacks all arranged, Robert, right now. Like I have a basket that's got cute snacks, like the granola bars and the fruit snacks now, but I have so many other projects. I've had plenty of time to totally organize my house, and it's nowhere near done. But I've also spent time like middle of the day, like I'm cooked today. I'm in bed with my Netflix or taking a nap or reading a book. So if this right now, it's like, hey, I'm going to go run every day. I'm going to get in the best shape of my life in this kind of isolation phase. I'm going to book, create, please do it. Like I've had creative moments, but I've also had some moments where I'm just kind of like, I just need to distract my brain for a bit. And I know I'm choosing a distraction, and that's also okay. I just think, the judgment, like we have judgment of like, some people we're judging other people's fear levels. Like, hey, you shouldn't do it this way and that way and all of that. And anyway, we could go on and on for that. I just think, just observe it. One of my things for my coaching clients, we have 3 core coaching philosophies. And the third one is to observe, not judge yourself or others. You can observe something, like when you watch yourself have a pattern or a reaction, or, wow, I get triggered with that same thing over and over again. When someone or this happens, man, I'm easily offended, or I shut down, or, we can observe our triggers or observe other people, but the more we can just send them love and send ourselves love, I think the better off, we all are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and you kind of snuck the word should in there. And I think there's a lot of invitation into, you know, what we should be doing right now. We should be wearing a mask. We shouldn't be outside. We should be staying more than, you know, so it's all these shoulds. And the truth is we're all making this up as we go along. We're doing the best we can. Everyone's doing the best we can. And I think you bring up a really good point that if we start getting into that mindset of, you know, so-and-so shouldn't be doing that, or I shouldn't be doing this, or I shouldn't have done that, or whatever, those are really good judgments to pay attention to and not get too wrapped up in. So thank you for that.
Yeah. And I know just you and I both, where I think we both connect is we can get in definite like business brain, leadership brain, sales training brain, and like productivity mindset for sure. But I also love, this is why I think you and I have always connected. We also have this deep conscious respect, sacredness for like the tender heart and the inner work and the inner, some people call that inner child, but just like the humanness of a human reality that we're all, to your point, we're all in unknown territory. We're just figuring a lot of things out. And so I do think the thing that I love though, one of the other awarenesses I've had in the last few weeks is there are certain eternal principles that are always in play. Like, right, you know, the sun has still come out every day, right? Sometimes cloudy, but it has always come out. And like nature is still moving, and this earth and this world, and there is a shift. Truth telling, guys, like as much as I don't care, we all are uncomfortable at moments in this disruption. Our planet really, the velocity and the level and how we were going, like we can't sustain that way. It's not a sustainable model. And so, you know, looking at some of the changes and so forth, but looking in these last few weeks, certain things like intention, kindness, generosity, gratitude, you know, these are all things that they last through any circumstance or season. And so like, for instance, I know if I move my body every day in any season I'm in, I'm going to do better. I'm going to have more energy. I'm going to have more mental clarity. I'm going to feel better. That's a universal principle. If I do an act of kindness today, that's always going to benefit the receiver, benefit the giver, benefit, even studies have been shown that people that witness kindness, like some of the things going around social, I don't know about you, but I know I've cried several times, certain little videos and heartfelt things, because you see the humanness rising up and you see the love and the supporting each other, and, you know, the cute people being outside a window, these, you know, and sharing love or playing their instruments or clapping at 7 p.m. every night in New York City for our healthcare workers. Like, you can't watch that stuff and not be moved, as we know kindness and love are eternal. And there are certain things that are eternal no matter what's happening in our circumstances, and being reminded of true key principles that they really do work. Like, oh yeah, if I'm kind, like right now what I'm coaching all of my clients to do, because one thing that is kind of interesting in the business side is, well, can I still make sales right now? Can I make an offer right now? What do we think? It's like right now, more than ever, as you know, the heartbeat of my quote sales training is you're all in the relationship business. No matter any one of you watching or listening, any business you're in, it's a relationship business. And right now is a great time to reach out to your relationships. So even if in certain parts of your business have slowed down, for some people, it's only turned up. Like people are pivoting, having to make shifts. I'm good friends with a couple of people that own restaurants here in Utah. And they're really having to shift into, you know, the pivoting, the takeout, the curbside, you know, all those things. But the point being is that you can all nourish your relationships right now. The text, the handwritten note, the email, the let's FaceTime, let's Marco Polo, let's get on Zoom and let's connect. I mean, that's exactly what Robert's doing, is taking this disruption and saying, I'm going to add more value to you. It's so wise for him as a human, because A, it gives him purpose and focus. It will edify him being in these conversations. But one of the things that's positive for his business is he's also showing up to add value to people right now doing this. And so anytime you think about the heartbeat of your business is, you know, the word CARE, and that we show up in a way to say, I'm going to help nourish my relationships. That might be social media. My team yesterday, we put together and compiled a course I do every November called the Gratitude and Generosity Series, and we sell it at the end for $49. Well, we've compiled the last 4 years. So $200 worth of recordings, 16 sessions that we just put out for free to social media and to my list and to good content. Now there's still paid for content that we're doing, but right now is also a really valuable time. Any time is, but I just feel that real need is like nourish your relationships. Yeah, you might not be calling people and like, hey, you ready to buy? But, hey, how you doing?
Yep,
Is there
exactly.
anything, one of my favorite questions at any time, not just in the middle of COVID, is the question is, how can I best support you? That's $1 million question to ask your spouse, to ask your child, to ask your neighbor, to ask your client, to ask your prospect, is how can I best support you? Is there anything like, what do you or your team need the most right now? You know, if I'm you, I'd reach out to your clients to be asking those questions. How are you? Is there anything I can do? Can I support you? How can I best support you? And being intentional about that, that's how right now I just think I would tell you that advice any of the time, as you know, is that, yeah, you can still be nourishing your business by showing up to take care of your relationships.
Well, and I would agree with you 100%. And I think, that's exactly the approach that I have been taking. First of all, a business as usual approach makes no sense to me right now because there's no usual. Like, what's as usual? Like, the whole world's been, taken up, picked up, turned upside down and dumped out on the table. We have no idea what as usual means.
Yeah.
And what I'm finding is that there is so much value in just checking in with people, friends, family, clients, potential clients, anyone really. Like, who can I pick up the phone and call and ask that exact question? Like, how can I best serve you? And ask it from a place of total non-attachment, like zero attachment to whether this is a client or a paying client or, any like just no attachment to that, but just how can I help? And trusting on some level, high intention that on some end that, my work is going to have value and it's all going to be okay. But the truth is, I feel like I'm flying totally blind. I mean, and you're right. The reason I'm doing this series is to do something. This is one way. When I asked myself, how can I help? This is the idea that came up. So here we are, we're doing it.
I love it.
And I've been getting great feedback. I've gotten more feedback about, this little 2-week block of my podcast in the last year and a half that I've been doing the podcast.
Right.
And I think it's because people need to be in these kinds of conversations.
Yes.
So,
well, can I just honor you? Thank you for living that and being that and just who you are. I know you'll probably be a little uncomfortable with that, but just sincerely is that you are that person that's adding that kind of value. And I think that, in a quote unquote, in my sales training booklet, there's, all kinds of content. Well, there's a quote in there by Tony Robbins where he says, dollars follow value. And that we can be a VC at any time, a value creator. And that's in a little, I think you have this. I have a document, a manifesto I created years ago called The Creator's Oath. And there's a line in there that says, I add value wherever I go, whether I'm paid or not. That's one of my personal mantras as me for Tiff, as myself, like wherever I go. Now I'm not perfect at that, but that's the point of a mantra or a point of a creed or a manifesto or a mission statement is like, who do I choose to be? My chosen self. Doesn't mean I'm perfectly her, I'm not, but my chosen self is I'm gonna add value wherever I go, whether I'm paid or not. But I can bring love, I can bring light. And into this disruption is like, how can I serve? And like some people, are sending meals into our healthline, our healthcare workers on the front line, some, you know what I'm saying? There's just so many ways. And right now it's like, hey, we're gonna put good content out there. You and I know how to produce good content and share good content. Let's gather people. Let's put it online. Let's do this where maybe if we can help someone, even if just one person off this show is like, yeah, my mindset got elevated or I got out of my funk. I got off the couch. I put on my sneaks. I got out on a walk. I was in a real deep funk. I mean, we're just all in it and at different points, right? Like I've been in really positive place a lot of this, and I've had some real dark points in the midst of this. I've had both. And so for you, again, just thank you for being who you are, to always come back to that as your North Star is I'm going to add value.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
As our good friend Jack says, how perceptive of you to notice.
Thank you for noticing how amazing I am.
So I knew this was going to happen, and I'm so bummed. We got off to a little bit of a late start, and I have to run like shortly after we're scheduled to finish. But I so appreciate you, and I think people get a sense. You touched on some of the other questions that I wanted to ask you today that we didn't really get to dive into too deeply, but you touched on how important it is for the women in the world to get a certain level of support and understanding. I see women who are being expected to be, all things to all people, with, continuing to work and school the kids and, the whole thing. And it is important to realize, it's a really different time, and pay attention to that. And you also touched on the sales side. I mean, Tiffany, in my experience, there's a lot of people out there that teach people how to sell without being salesy. And some people are even really salesy about the way they promote their program to teach with or to sell without being salesy. But when I think about like an authentic strategy for selling, you're the first person I think of. So I want to ask you, like, if people are intrigued, they want to know more about you and what you're up to, just be connected to you, what's the best way for them to do that? Whether if it's a woman who resonates with what you said, or someone who likes kind of what we're scratching the surface of with the sales conversation, or whatever it is, what's the best way for people to connect with you?
Well, thank you, love. And there's a couple of different ways. My website has several free resources of programs you can download. A self-care guide. I highly, highly recommend all of you, men and women, go to tiffanyspeaks.com and click on the tab free resources. And there's a couple listed there, but download the self-care guide. And there's an awesome grid between body, mind, heart, and spirit to be an intentional creator with your time, with your self-care. I think is so valuable for all of us all the time, but especially right now. There's also some goal setting training and sales training that's there. My YouTube channel, which is under my name, or my podcast, also under my name on Apple, Spotify, or Stitcher. A lot of places for rich content. My favorite social media outlet is Instagram, but I'm also very present on LinkedIn or on Facebook as well if you love the social world and want to stay connected there. But those are a couple of ways and things that, we can be connected through. If I can I wrap up with a final thought or quote? I just feel like it just keeps like, I need to say this, so I got to honor that.
I'm sorry, we're out of time. No, I'm kidding.
I know, but we got to honor spirit, because that's really why we do all the work we do. And, 6 months ago, John Maxwell was in Salt Lake City, which is where I'm based. And I'd never heard him speak before, but have a lot of respect. I mean, he's written lots and lots of books on leadership. And my friend and I went out and saw his seminar for the day. And he said something there that I'm obviously still thinking about 6 months later. And the statement that he said this. He said, aging is automatic. And I was like, yep.
I'm with you.
You know what I mean? I'm like feeling you on that, bud. Because here's the reality. Right now, at the time of this recording, it's April of 2020. You might see it now. You might stumble on this 5 years from now. Who knows? But it's April of 2020 when Robert and I are recording this. And I mean, that means we just started second quarter of 2020. Before we know it, it will be August, and then it will be Thanksgiving, and then it will be 2021. Who knows? Right now, we just have to deal and be in the day that we're in. But aging is automatic. And there's a lot of things we try to do to like hold that aging off, right? Or I should speak for myself. There's a lot of things that I can to help with that, with fitness and so forth. Anyway, point is, he says aging is automatic. And you're like, yeah, that's true. Like the time just goes by regardless. He said, but then what he said that just so clicked for me, he said, growth must be intentional. Aging is automatic. Growth must be intentional. And so whether it's our personal growth, our fitness, our mindset, we don't just stumble into a good mood. You don't just stumble into a great marriage. You don't just stumble into a thriving business. You don't just stumble into a fit, healthy, strong body, right? Now, there's a lot of influences of all those things, but the reality is we must be intentional. And so even when seasons shift and change, I love still coming back to our power, that it's like, yeah, there's a lot none of us can control right now. And our illusion of control has been seriously messed with. I mean, in Utah 2 weeks ago, Robert, we woke up to an earthquake in the middle of a pandemic. At that point, I was like, look, I'm out, people. Like, I'm just, I'm like,
really?
I'm freaked. I'm so freaked. Now, I know you live in California and you're used to earthquakes all the time.
Earthquakes, fires, yeah, no problem.
Yeah, but we haven't had that big of an earthquake, and it was said in like 28 years. I mean, literally my whole house. I live in an old home in Sugar House, Utah, which my home was built in 1928. Great home. I love it here. But the reality is I'm up on the top floor, and my whole home is like in a boat. In the middle of, like, I'm in the door frame, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, what's happening? Yeah, Anyway, in all of various circumstances, I love coming back. There's a lot we can't control, and control is an illusion all the time. We're just highly aware of it now because of all the disruption to our typical day and life. And we honor that and even maybe grieve that. But the reality of taking where the power lies is coming back home to ourselves. It says, I'm going to choose to be intentional with myself. I'm going to start and end my day with nourishing activities. It's one activity I'm asking all my coaching clients to live, is start and end their day with an intentional ritual. But choosing into that. And I just thank you for allowing me to tuck that in, as I just felt so strongly that aging is automatic. The time is going by and will go by. But the growth piece, that for all of us, no matter what season we're in, must be intentional.
It's a great reminder. And I think it's something that's really easy to forget, right? With everything else that's going on right now. So thank you.
Yeah.
I knew when you said you were called to share something, I knew we had to share it. So I love you too. I'm so grateful. Again, this is a perfect example of what I had in mind for this wisdom series. The podcast is designed to help people make more excellent decisions, get really grounded in their vision, their values, their value. But especially right now with the stress and pressure that is the alternative to that being so great, it's so important to be connected to people like you. So I'm so grateful for that. Also grateful to our audience. You are the reason why we have the podcast. And hopefully this wisdom series is helping you in this crazy time. And I will go back quickly to the real intention here, the experience of true happiness. And again, we use the ancient Greek definition, which is the experience of joy while in pursuit of your potential. And you can see why I invited Tiffany to be part of that conversation, because she embodies that. So thank you, Tiffany. We'll talk to you soon. And for everyone else, we'll see you on the next episode of the Excellent Decisions podcast.